everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the God Squad podcast. As always, I'm Cody. With me is my brother in Christ, Logan. What's going on, man?
Oh, not much, man. So, it's just been a busy day trying to get here. I told our guests here today that we were a little late running. We had a birthday party to get to, but we're here now and ready to talk about Jesus.
Yeah, if it ain't technical difficulties, it's me and you both running behind.
That's
so
right.
Today with us is rock artist Matt Sassano. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, what's going on? Greetings from good old Tennessee.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to about the good old Tennessee part.
Yeah.
Guys are not far off. Like you were saying, you guys were from Kentucky. So I'm just a hop and a skip away and just glad to be here, man. I heard about you guys not that long ago and just knew I had to hop on here. And yeah, man, so glad to be here with all of you.
Yeah, our friend Pastor Paul Grider, he shot you a message and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming on?" He's been on our podcast several times. Him and his wife Angela. He's actually my pastor, Pastor Paul, and I work with Paul. And you talk about somebody that I burn them up with questions. I just ruin Paul's day a lot of times. I always come up and burn his ear.
Hopefully this podcast doesn't get too theological because, man, I'll be stumbling. But you guys throw me off. But I'm Paul's a great guy, and I had met him on tour and everything. Were you guys? Did you guys happen to come to one of the Seventh Day Slumber shows that I was on?
No, I met Paul after that. He told me that y'all in Seventh Day come to the Way Church, and so we started going after that. And I was like, man, that'd be cool. So he's been talking to like you and Seventh Day Slumber and stuff, trying to get people on the podcast for us. He was trying to help us any way we can. But soon as you reached out, I was like, man, because we'll jump right in. I got your song "Fuel" on my playlist, my workout playlist.
Nice, dude. Yes.
Yeah. He was like, you want to talk to this guy? I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to this guy. Like I listen to you all the time.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. Just to be a part of that. And I'm glad you put it on your workout playlist. I'm hearing that's something I hear more and more often, and I'm so glad that Fuel's doing really well on the charts right now, man, and just really impacting people in a big way. So thank you so much for spreading the word, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. So our podcast is pretty much centered around, it ain't pretty much, it is. It's centered around Christ and what Christ has done for us and what Christ has done for our guests. So, I mean, do you want to get into your testimony or some background about yourself, or how you got into music or anything like that?
Yeah, man. So my story is a huge, kind of an underdog story. I grew up in a small little town called Canisteo, New York, that nobody's ever heard of. And
that's us.
Yeah, man, I spent a lot of my time just kind of feeling misplaced. I grew up with two disabilities. I have cerebral palsy, and I have another disability called dyscalculia that also nobody's ever heard of, but it posed a lot of different problems in my education. And I just remember struggling through school and kind of always constantly feeling like the odd man out, feeling like, somebody that just didn't have like a bright future. Another side of my testimony is being raised in church. I was a pastor's son in that small town. I got to learn a lot of great things about my faith and really grew in that way. But on the other side of the coin, there was a lot of hidden abuse swept under the rug by my dad, who was the pastor. And so a lot of my life was about trying to sort out who I was and trying to sort out, the truths about who I was and the truths about who God was at the same time. And so I think that as we talk about my music and stuff like that, the core of the music that I make all centers around transparency and being real and just authenticity in a way that's a little bit different. We're talking to a lot of these different groups, from people with disabilities, domestic abuse issues, and a range of issues. And that's kind of, the center of what I do and what I like to do.
Yeah. So is that kind of what brought you into music, is how you kind of grew up and had these struggles and stuff? Because I mean, like I said, I've heard your music before, and I know kind of some of your background just from your music, so is that what kind of led you to just doing music, or you're like, well, I can sing, so that's just what I'm going to do?
Well, it's so funny because it wasn't my initial intention to even be a singer. I wanted to write the songs and play the bass, and that was kind of my initial intention. I was like such a timid, shy dude. Like, there is no way in this life or the next that I had ever dreamed that I would be a singer. But what had happened was around the time my first band project was formed, I was in a
Mhm.
small little town. I was like, all right, I'm going to play bass and write the songs, and hopefully this will go well. Well, as you probably know, or any musician may know, um, or any podcaster may know, that people are very fickle. They don't stick with anything. So I would end up drafting a singer. The next week they would drop out, and I was right back at square one going, what do I do? Like, I know I have this calling. I know I want to do this thing, but every other week we're introducing a new singer, and that's getting really frustrating. So that week, kind of a crazy story. I walked into a church. Nobody really knew who I was, and I probably had gone to that church like 1 week. And in the middle of the service, this lady took me up front. She was speaking at the time, and she said, can you come up here? And I was all shaking, just freaking out, kind of nervous to go up front, didn't know what was going to be said. And she said, hey, God wants me to tell you that he wants to use you in music. And it was just such a weird feeling because I was all for that. I was like, dude, use me in music because I've been trying to put this thing together. Let's get a singer going. And then she said, but he wants me to tell you that in order to do that, he wants you to sing.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's when my heart dropped. I was like, there is no way I'm going to ever sing in front of people. And so, it just sunk my heart, man. I was freaking out. And yeah, from there it took me about 2 to 3 weeks to kind of just argue and go like, are you sure you heard God right? Or like, are we gonna do this? And yeah, from there I just kind of grew into the role of a singer. My very first show, I remember it's way different than the 7 Day Slumber shows that I've been at because I was shaken. I was, just I like the first song, I winded myself. I had to stay, lay in the middle of the platform. And so from there, it was just, you know, trusting God to kind of, continue the journey. And before long, he kind of brought people my way to kind of sharpen my skills and everything like that. So it's been a process, I guess you could say, but we're here now.
That's awesome. Dude,
Yeah.
I mean, just I've heard some of your story, and y'all posted a few weeks ago on your Facebook page about another podcast you was on. I'm like, I gotta check that out. I just kind of see, about this guy's story, because we tried to do our homework just a little bit,
Yeah.
and so I heard the story, and then from what Paul told me and stuff, I'm like, man, just how Christ has worked in your life and how you've overcome this stuff to just still be a singer and just be up on stage and doing this stuff, man. It's just it's so inspiring, because we both went through struggles. Like Logan said a few weeks ago on our episode, he had cancer when he was 15, went through all this chemo treatments. So my left ankle, I was born club-footed. Like, I've not said on the podcast, but like my left foot's been completely rebuilt. And so like how this has impacted our lives completely, and we still get up every day and do what we want to do and still spread Jesus, I think these things happen in our life to show us, hey, you can still get out and spread Christ and use, like James chapter 1 says, count it all as joy, because I mean, there's things we plan in our life that you're like,
Yeah.
why does this happen to us? But then it goes to show God uses for his glory every day.
Yeah, it's funny because you kind of think about like a world without affliction. Sounds like a great thing, but like, at what use would we be to each other? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's like, in a weird way, a lot of people would ask me like, if you had the chance, would you just like take away all the disabilities and kind of live like a completely normal life? But I always say like, as easy as yes would be, and I kind of picture a life outside of those parameters and stuff. It kind of built the story that I have, and I'm sure same with you. It's like, without a profound testimony, like how do we demonstrate, God's provision for us, and just drawing close and learning how to trust in any relationship. That's kind of a key element. And so, sometimes, as unfortunate as it is, and in this fallen world, we just will end up with afflictions, but it does test
Mm-hmm.
us, and it's interesting to see, but I didn't know that about your stories, man. This is crazy that we got three overcomers on the podcast, underdogs
That's
doing our
right.
thing, man.
That's right. I mean, I've never said on the podcast about, I mean, it was just at birthday, I've had my trials and tribulations with it, but like, I mean, Logan's story is incredible. I mean,
Wow.
just what he's overcome and stuff to get to where he's at today is crazy. And so I don't know. He shared a little bit on the podcast a few weeks ago with another interviewer we had who's come over similar things that he did. Do you have any questions? I keep talking.
No,
you can talk some too. I just keep talking. I'm babbling.
You're fine. It was just, you talk about the things you go through, and it does build your relationship with Christ. And one of the questions that I have in building that relationship with Christ, what is going through, well, let me see how I could word this that would make sense. How getting to this point where you would want to make this kind of music, where you didn't go to like you're kind of a rock Christian and you didn't go through a country or whatever.
Good question.
Through your growth to where you are now.
Well, I think, like I said, my love for music kind of started when I was 15 years old. Like I said, I was a pastor's son in a small church. And like I said, even felt misplaced in church. I remember times when I would show up and we had just gotten in a fight. I would show up to church kind of having to fake a smile and do all these things and hide black and blue marks. But in deep down, I always loved God, even though, I had gone through all the adversity that I had faced. And so I remember one time when I was in church, there was these 3 former Amish kids that came through, and they were just disassociating from the Amish kind of way of life. And they wandered into our church, and they were around my age. Their name was Eddie, John, and Tom. And they were opposite of what you'd think, man. When they went full out from the Amish way of life, they really went full out. They had the tattoos, they had the piercings. And within that, they slipped me my first Tooth and Nail Records compilation, and that's where the rock and roll kind of took its, kind of planted the seeds of rock and roll in me. And from there, I just remember just kind of being addicted to all styles of music, but primarily rock. And it was all due to these 3 wild Amish kids that came my way. And I remember the first song I ever kind of, back in the days of Napster, illegally pirated and stuff, and made my own CDs. I made a Project 86 couple songs, and from there it was just like I grew into this, eclectic mix of all sorts of rock music that was just all due to this experience that I had, And so, and I think around 2014, we moved to Tennessee, my family and I.
Have you always, since you've lived in New York, have you always lived in Knoxville, or have you lived other places?
So I was raised in upstate New York, and around 2014, what happened was my parents were kind of in the middle of a really, crazy divorce. And my stepdad, who kind of I knew from back in my past, he kind of was a comfort to me at that time. And he was like, "Hey, Matt, I know you've got a lot to say. Your family is kind of splitting up, and I know you love music. If you start a band, I'll manage it. And I just feel like this could be a cool direction for your life." And that's kind of how it all started, with me kind of, again, like I said, was going to initially write the songs and play the bass. All this was conceived in New York. And then around 2014, we moved to Knoxville, got affiliated with Travis Wyrick, who has done work for POD and Disciple. And he really put me through boot camp. He was the guy that was like, "Man, you got to, sing like crazy. You got to, get on the treadmill." At the time, I was smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. Had to quit all that stuff, throw that out. And finally just kind of walked into the calling that I felt like God was calling me into. But it wasn't like a overnight process. It was line upon line, precept upon precept. And, like I said, just grew into this role that I never thought I would ever be a part of, And it just goes to show too, all the challenges that you may face and people out there listening may face, if God's called you, he'll equip you for what he wants you to do. You just have to trust him and overcome one challenge at a time, and he'll eventually mold you and make you into who he wants you to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's before you make your next, let's take a break.
Take a break.
We're going to take a second to give a shout out to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is going to be J.Berry Make Stuff. Jonathan Berry makes wooden signs like the one back here. He made the awesome hat that I have on. And if you need something made, something custom, sign, hat, tumbler, pretty much anything, give J.Berry a shout out.
Be sure to give him a call. And also, give Angela Jesse a call at FH&L Family Practice.
Yeah.
Angela Jesse is a family practice nurse practitioner and certified in psychiatry. She has over 30 years of experience, and she is willing to help you with whatever you're going through. If you need an appointment, please give her a call at 270-432-2444.
Awesome. And our last sponsor is the A&A Cutlery page. On A&A, they sell knives, mostly case knives. They do different types of brands. So a bunch of good group of guys that are just trying to also grow God's kingdom, just like we are. So get on there, like their page, follow, and buy you a knife.
They're on our Facebook page along with all the other our other two sponsors. So just go to our Facebook page, and there are links on there.
Awesome. So back to the show.
Yeah.
And we're back. All right. So, Matt, I've always thought, being in like the Christian music type of field, you always have to watch for, I guess, frauds, people that are in it thinking that they can get into it for the money. Have you ever run into somebody you're like, hey, like I know you're doing Christian music, but like, you're not living like a Christian. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that like, when you're a musician, people don't realize how vulnerable you are, especially when you first start out and you get into those situations where, you're very vulnerable as an artist. And I remember one particular record label that I was a part of, not Rockfest Records. Let's just put that out on the table. There was a little startup thing called Raven Faith Records that I was a part of when I was first doing this music thing. And they just weren't entirely honest with their artists. They, used to kind of like, do a lot of shady things behind the scenes. And mostly, for artists that were kind of just new and up and coming and didn't really know how to fight those battles. And so I remember, very many times when I was like, man, this is just not right. I don't think that they exist anymore, but that was one of the labels that, claim to be a label that kind of takes advantage. There's a lot of people in this industry that will take advantage of you. And it's just kind of sad to see because, you come into the Christian music industry and you think that everything is going to be, above board and everybody's going to live the way that they portray on a stage or behind the scenes or in a label. And that's just not the truth. And I'm not to say that I'm perfect. Like I probably have my vices and my things that I struggle with, but at the end of the day, like I try to be honest. And like I said, I that's kind of at the core of everything that I do. And so, like it really is kind of disillusioning sometimes to see certain people in the Christian music industry be the way that they are. But again, there are really awesome people, and I don't ever want to understate that, man. Like Rockfest Records was really great, and the people that I'm working with now are really awesome. And so, yeah, unfortunately, in every field of business, you get, and even in ministry, you get people that you're just like, ugh. But fortunately, I've kind of navigated myself through it, and so far God has been good to kind of lead me through all that stuff. And it was crazy, but it makes you stronger. Like I said, my song Fuel, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Exactly.
But here's one of the questions I wanted to ask too. It's you're when you go out and you sing in front of all these people and you're basically worshiping when you're singing and things like that. What is the moment that sticks out to you the most as to wow, God's in the building with us tonight? How is there a moment that sticks out to you?
Man, I think it's a lot of when we meet back at the merch table, because that's the time when you kind of like that's the time when the lights aren't bright. The lights, when you're on the stage, you can kind of barely see what people are doing. A lot of us musicians, we bluff. We're like, jumping around, pointing at people. But the truth is, we can't see a thing up there because most of the time the lights are so bright. We're like, man, I hope I don't trip and break my ankle. And that's kind of what your focus is like just trying to get through the show. But like, as soon as you go back to the merch table and you hear people say like, dude, that song, Not My Name, like really resonated with me. And, I've had that happen. We've done a lot of shows, like I've said in previous interviews, at maximum security prisons too. And those have been really impactful too. I've had people that are, in jail for life for crimes that they committed. And they, I've talked about like Not My Name, different songs, and people were like, man, I'm ashamed of my past. I've done so many crazy things. I've even like unalived people. I've killed people basically. But what you said really resonated with me and made me want to get closer to God despite all the things that I've done in my past. And so it's really just an interesting thing. And I think also I've not to try to pat myself on the back here, but I've done something and opened up a conversation that typically isn't talked about in the music industry, which is disability. So you get a lot of people that are ashamed of walking in their own skin. Maybe they have a disability, cerebral palsy, some autism, whatever it is. I've met like all ranges of people. And I've heard time and time again, because you saying not my name, or you said something from stage, man, like I'm more comfortable in my own skin and I don't feel so alone. And so that's what always makes it worth it for me. You know, we talk about the shadiness of the industry and how much people try to rip you off and really do all these things, but at the end of the day, like, that is what keeps us going, is the fact that we, number one, just love the music, and number two, the impact that it has on all sorts of different people.
Well, yeah, we're all about Jesus jams around here.
Yeah, that's my playlist name. Your song is on my Jesus Jam list.
And I'm going to ask you this question. It can't be one of your songs because that's cheating. If you were to, before you go out on stage and you have to find a Jesus Jam to pump you up, what song are you choosing?
Oh man, Jesus Jam to pump me up.
Oh man.
Shoot.
Oh,
you know what's so funny, man? And this is a crazy secret. When you're on tour so much with like bands like Seventh Day Slumber, in between times it's funny because I find myself, not that I'm a fan any other time, but I'll find myself listening to like K-Love just because my ears are ringing so much. You travel so much. And so every once in a while you got to put on some Jeremy Camp, but to pump me up, man, there's just so much. Like, I don't know. I'm a huge Skillet fan. I'm a big Starset fan lately. Anything with, I'm really fascinated by like a lot of the electronic components of like a band like Starset. So I've really been jamming to them a lot lately. But it changes day to day, man. Like my music taste goes from, all sorts of different things real quick.
Yeah, I can see that on my Amazon Music. I have anybody from, from Crowder to Slipknot. Sometimes I probably, shouldn't listen to Slipknot, but
hey man, we all, like Slipknot's another one that will definitely pump you up. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's tough to say, but like, yeah, like when you tour so much and you're doing that, it's kind of weird, but you kind of want to get away from it because your ears are ringing and you're hearing the same songs and doing the same songs every night. So you're like, I need a little, refresher break, put on a little bit of Crowder, put on a little bit of Chris Tomlin and chill.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I know that's the least rock and roll answer you want to hear.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people think, when they talk about, your modern day Christian music is your Jeremy Camps and your stuff like that, but a lot of people don't think of like you or Seventh Day Slumber or, bands or Skillet, I guess, is the biggest one I can think of.
Yeah.
Which I didn't grow up in church. I come to Jesus just by hearing the word. And so like, I'm just getting to it as I'm going. I've been saved for 4 years. And as I'm getting into it, and they make fun of me all the time because all my friends and stuff and my wife grew up in church, and they're like, well, what was the biggest thing you come across, in church? Was it this? And I'm like, reading hymn books. I cannot get past reading hymn books. I can't do it. I don't know why.
It is kind of funny, man. Yeah, like my music taste can be really eclectic at times, but it's crazy because we'll travel from Kentucky to California just blasting, whatever it is. Who's the big thing now for King and Country, or whatever.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, you want to talk about your number one hits and tell people about your music?
Yeah, man. So just really excited. Like I said, my latest song, Fuel, hit number one. We've had 3 consecutive number ones, which is super cool. Not My Name went number one, Dear God, and now Fuel kind of hit that. On February 23rd, which isn't too far away, I'm coming out with a new song that touches on domestic abuse issues, and it's called Happy Family. I just revealed the cover for that. And if you're a Tim Burton fan, you're going to really enjoy the cover art for that, because everybody's like, man, that's so Burton-y and all that kind of stuff. But I'm a huge fan of Coraline. I really think that this song speaks to domestic abuse issues in a way that's not really been done in the Christian music industry before. And it's my hope that through this song, people will come forward and finally get the bravery and courage to feel like, you're not alone. You can do it. You can step forward. And with transparency, you can kind of turn this stuff around. Sometimes it can be really fearful to know your next step and coming forward with a situation like that. So I just encourage you guys to check out Happy Family February 23rd and let me know what you think.
We'll do. Y'all have a tour scheduled or anything? That I wanted to ask you while you was on here.
Yeah, so we've got some tours. We've got some festivals that we're working on solidizing and completing within the 2024. I haven't said it too much on many podcasts, but I know one of them will be Uprise Festival. And so if y'all know what Uprise Festival is, come on down. I'll be there. I think I'm not sure who the lineup is, and I don't want to really confuse anybody, but judging by their roster, I mean, usually there's some really amazing bands there. And then I'm going to try to, from each festival, try to kind of arrange from there some tours that I can reach out to some churches or some clubs or some wherever they're going to take me. And we'll do some tours branching out from all the festival locations that we've got. And so super excited. Another thing that's really exciting is for some of these shows, I've been going out as an independent, like just a solo artist, but I'd love to get like a drummer and a guitar player. So I'm hoping to kind of like get those in place for select tours and stuff. So it should be exciting.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you make it back to the Way Church again. That way we can come up meet you in person.
Dude, that'd be awesome, man. Tell Paul, like, man, we got to have Matt Sassano up, because I'd gladly come out. You guys are not too far away, and it'd just be a really good night to hang out, chill, do a concert, do a little outreach, and yeah, man, it'd be awesome to reunite.
That's right. So, you got any more questions?
No, I'm good. No, yeah, it all that I wanted covered was covered, so we're good.
All right. Well, Matt, we appreciate you coming on the podcast today. If you ever want to come back on, or you want to promote more of your music or anything like that, or I mean, if you even want to make us an intro song, we might talk about that.
There you go.
So, hey, man, I'll give that some thought, dude. I mean, you gotta have something. If with a name like God Squad, there has to be an intro music. So
that's right.
Yeah, I'll give that some thought, guys. You keep rocking, and thank you guys so much for having me on, dude. We'll be chatting again.
All right, thank you, man. I hope everybody goes checks out your new song, February 23rd, right?
Yes, February 23rd. Happy Family.
All right, we'll share it on our Facebook page so people will keep on looking for it, and we'll try to help you out as much as we can.
Hey, same right back at you, man, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna hit.